Well, hey guys. Well, I'm going to show you and tell you how not to break your motorcycle in the first 5 minutes of just getting the engine rebuilt. Now, you're probably wondering if I broke mine, and that's why I'm telling you this. No, I did not. Because, yes, I had it built a little while ago. I ran into a few small issues, nothing wrong with the engine, just waiting on some parts to come in, and I'll show you the parts. And one of it was a clutch cable, which I'll tell you that whole story. That really kind of irritated me, and I should have just ordered one, and I didn't. I finally had to end up ordering. So all that is what took so long to start showing you how to break in your motor. Well guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new to the channel, I'm CJ. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, like button, notification bell, especially if you like doing stuff to your bike yourself, travels, anything motorcycle related, you just might want to. So the big thing I had to wait on was a new exhaust system, and what I went with was a 2-in-1 Sidewinder exhaust from S&S. And I wanted it in black to match the bike, go with the whole color scheme of it. And it just looks amazing with this whole build that I've done. The other thing I had to wait on was this blasted clutch cable. This one right here though is a good one. It's a Barnett clutch cable, and paired with the Barnett clutch, aim pressure plate, and these 1-finger levers. I love these levers because with everything, it's a very effortless pull. It feels like nothing there. I mean, it's just, I can pull that with 1 finger. Look at that. I actually probably later will go with a shorter lever. I just didn't know how much or how hard the pull would be, so I went with a full length lever. But later I'll probably go with a shorter one. Now that I've covered what I was waiting on, the only little issue I did run into was the battery. I do keep that bike and the Sportster on chargers, so that way I don't drain the battery, especially with hot, cold weather, and so I don't want to deal with that. But it was showing 12 volts and higher, but it would not start the bike. And I didn't go with high compression on this bike, so I took it down to AutoZone, and they put it on a test, and it showed insufficient cold cranking amps. So it wouldn't turn that bike over. Now, I was thinking, okay, maybe the compression is too high for the starter, all that, but it wasn't. And that's the reason I didn't go with high compression. If I went with higher compression, I would have had to put compression releases on the bike, but it's only a little above stock compression. And another reason behind that is so that way when I'm on the road, I don't have to get 93, 91 octane fuel, because the higher compression, you kind of limit yourself on what gas you can put in your bike. Now, I like running 91, 93 anyway, but if I'm in a situation where a gas station is not selling that, I can still put the gas in the bike. So I did have to change out the battery. Now, let's jump into this part. When you got it all done, and you can actually crank that bike, and you want to hear how it sounds, do not go revving the crap out of that engine. I guarantee you'll break that motor as quick as you built it. Actually, probably quicker, really, because the piston rings aren't seated, you haven't done any heat cycles. You want to crank it and let it heat up to operating temperature, and then shut it off. And not even operating temperature. Depending on the manufacturer and their specs, like with S&S, heat it up for about a minute, shut it off, and you want to do that about 4 times. And each time giving it just a little bit more time of letting it run. Don't go, hey man, check this out, it starts, and go, wow, because you will probably break it. It's a process. It's not like, hey, you're going to just build it, go out there, and run it like you were running it before you built it. It's finally a day I can get this bike out and start doing the break-in miles. With all the weather that's been happening down here, rain, plus it's been really hot. I don't want to get it out in the middle of the day, but I can finally get it out and start doing the break-in miles. And the first 50 miles is crucial. You're actually limited to 2,500 RPM. So you're not really getting out and romping on it. I know it's tempting to just like, hey, I want to see how this feels. For that first 50 miles, what you're doing is getting those piston rings seated. So you don't want to get stuck in traffic. You kind of need to plan your route out, where you're going to go. Because you really don't want to go in town and be sitting at traffic lights, letting that engine heat up. That's another way you can destroy that engine pretty quick. It's just put it under a heat cycle that it's not supposed to. Let it get too hot, not a good thing. So I'm taking it out back roads, making sure I'm not going straight in traffic. Now this ain't the first engine I broke in. Now it will be the first fuel injected bike I have broke in. Now break-in procedure is pretty similar throughout the bikes from carbureted to fuel injection, but I'll show you where it does get a little bit different, and that's in the ECM. Luckily I got a ThunderMax ECM on here, so I can hook it up to my computer. Now I've already loaded the base map before I even cranked the bike, and all the base map's doing is getting it pretty close. The one thing ThunderMax will not do is change your ignition timing. So if it's pinging or doing anything like that, you'll have to go in and change that, or take it to a professional and have them set that for you. But what the good thing the ECM does is, going out riding, it will change your air to fuel ratio. So when you hook it back, hook it up, push the auto map, and it'll do all that for you. I can already tell she sounds really, really good, even though I'm in the low RPMs. And that's another thing with the weather, the heat, everything. This is why most people like doing this during the wintertime. But because I have trips coming up, have to get her done, plus I wanted to get her back on the road anyway. I didn't have a choice on when I could do it, because it has been brutal putting her together. And then picking the times to get her out. That's another thing. I mean, with all the rain that's been happening, it makes it harder to get her out. And I don't want to get her out in the rain on wet roads when I don't know how she's going to run. I'm not used to her yet. Just not really smart of me to do something like that. I mean, if it was a dirt bike, I'd be like, okay, let's get her out, but she's a 900-pound motorcycle. I don't even care if it's a Sportster. If I'm not used to the bike and know how she's going to ride, I don't like putting her on conditions that I'm uncomfortable with. And then also, while you're braking in the motor, don't keep it at a constant speed. Vary the speed, vary the RPMs, which you're supposed to do that carbureted, non-carbureted, fuel injection, either way. But it'll make a little bit more sense with the fuel injected and with the Thunder Max once I show you that. Now your first 50 miles, I would recommend putting the cheapest oil you can. Go to AutoZone, pick you up some non-synthetic 20 weight 50, put it in there, because you'll be doing an oil change pretty quick on the bike. I mean, 50 miles ain't that much. Then I would put in what you're used to running, some synthetic. I'm going to put some Redline 20 weight 50 in here after I get to 50 miles, because then I won't be doing another oil change until I get 500 miles on the bike. And they say within the first 500 miles is your most crucial time. If it's really going to break, it's going to break in that period. So that's why they limit you on your RPMs, because once you get your 50, then you get up to 3,500 for the next 500 miles. Once you get that, that's when you can truly kind of open it up and run it like you want to. And all that has to do is with longevity wise. You know, some people, you know, they put it in there, do the 50 miles, and then run it how they're going to want to run it. You know, some people say, hey, if it's going to break, it's going to break. You know, run it like you stole it. But I want to do to the manufacturer spec. You know, S&S builds engines. They've been doing it for a long time. They know what they're talking about. And I don't really have the money to keep replacing engines. So I want to build it correct. I want to do the break-in procedure correct. I mean, I've done this on a few different bikes and a few different engines. But again, this is my first time doing it on a fuel injection. And the only difference is hooking it up to the computer. You don't do that with carbureted. You find the right jet and it's going to run the same way. Now with fuel injection, it's tuning the front and rear cylinder separately. So that's a big difference. Not only that, see, when I get hit 500 miles, I'm still tuning this bike. I'm tuning it all the way up to basically Redline. Not that I want to go hit Redline as soon as I can. I want to gradually increase to that, so that way it's tuning this bike, the air to fuel ratio, across all the RPMs. That's what I want. But with carbureted, you hit the 500 miles, it's not going to change. It's the same. So as you can see, I got the computer hooked up to the Thunder Max, and it's real simple. I mean, I'm just going to go over here to map editing, turn it to auto map, and push OK. And it's just going to read it and write the fuel offsets. Where the blocks are a little different than the red ones, that's where it's going to be changing to. I'll show you a little bit more on the rear one. There's a big change. So every time I'm taking it out, bringing it back, changing the RPMs, riding it in different speeds, RPMs, gears, it's reading all that to map it to the way I ride and how the bike performs. Well guys, breaking in a new motor, whether it be carbureted, fuel injected, it's really not that hard. And each manufacturer might have a little bit of variances in their break-in procedure, but following the instructions they give you is just going to help with the longevity of that motor. I hope you like the content, and if you do, hit that subscribe button, like button, notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.